Hey y'all, hope you're doing great today. Let's kind of get into it. We're going to compare my two big races of the year, Leadville and the Marji Gesick, both about 100 miles, both between 11 and 13,000 feet. Very different races. Um, so let's start out with kind of the relive of both. We're going to start with the whole thing from Leadville. So as you can see, relatively straight course, very straightforward as far as climbing goes. You can see where your elevation is coming from. It came out to about 105.7 miles by my GPS, 11,693 feet of climbing. The elevation, well, is significant. It's between 9,000 and 13,000 feet. So the air is very thin up there, way thinner than, in Wisconsin. So it took some getting used to. We went out about 2 weeks before, pre-rode the entire course to kind of get an idea of where we're at. You're going to see some of that pre-ride footage come up. Well, you're going to see it from heading down PowerLine, which is, I think, the biggest, most technical descent, probably the most significant. You do kind of get a longer descent in some places, especially the Columbine. But I think the PowerLine is probably the most technical. Yeah, as your spoiler there, I did get my buckle, 909 and change. And I'm going to tell you where that 9 minutes went as we kind of get going here. So let's start out with bike components. I rode these two with slightly different components. I both used Pirelli's. This was Pirelli Scorpion RC with the Pro Wall. I did put on my rear lockout for my shock because of all the climbing. For nutrition, I went with Sustained Energy. I went with 400 calorie bottles. I kept that, it's some gels, and then I went with a hydration pack, which I kept between a liter and a half. We had a couple of SAG locations, Pipeline and Twin Lakes, and yeah, that's kind of it. So if you don't know the history of the race, it was started about 40 years ago as a foot race, morphed into also including a mountain bike race, and it's taken on by Lifetime Events. It is a, more, I guess I would say, corporate race. It's become, it's got pros, it's got the attention. Keegan Swenson just crushed the course this year, absolutely destroyed it. And yeah, there's a lot of fan fodder because of this. I mean, it's just a really cool thing to be a part of. Ken and Marilee, if you're not familiar with who they are, founders of the race, and they are still involved. They came out to the pre-race and talked a lot about family and being there and supporting the community. I mean, this is a race that save the community when the mines shut down. So just a really cool history and a great thing to be part of. I'll just say it up front. When I crossed the finish line, Marilee was there. She said, "Welcome home," and gave me a medal. And it was a pretty awesome moment. A lot of positivity around this race, which is cool. So let's kind of go from where we started. It started all with just a lottery entry. My buddy was like, "We should do a lottery entry, all of us, for Leadville." And I was like, "I already got a big race. Why don't we do it?" And chances are slim we're getting in. Well, we got in. What that means is that we started in the way back in the White Corral. So we have like our lottery entries, then we've got, the donation entries and stuff like that, charity entries, and then it's all the people that qualified in front of you in various times. So we're way back there. And I knew that going in. We were talking about doing a qualifying race and just didn't get to it. Well, because the cost and we would have to travel and all that stuff. So we were where we were. I tried to get up to the front of the White Corral as close as I could. Moving into it, when we took off, I tried to use all my road bike tactics to get as far ahead as I could. And it's like every time you got through one group, you got into another one. There's a whole lot of road and like paved and double track right into the first climb, the St. Kevin's climb. But I couldn't get ahead to not get bottlenecked. So this is where I lost some time for St. Stephen's climb. There's some washouts, there's some really bad track, and it came down to there's some sections where it's like, if you want to burn your matches to try to get ahead at that altitude, go for it. Oh, here, just talk about the video. We ended up taking a wrong turn. Didn't do it on race day, but just kind of moved up. So we're going to get on the right track. Anyways, so getting back to it, there was sections where it's like you can take the bad line and burn all your matches and try to get through the washout, or you can just walk. So I ended up walking in some conga lines to start out for quite a bit of it. It's either that or you're sitting on a tail trying to get past. So I was still in pretty good positive spirits. Coming to the top of St. Cleveland's, looking out and going, "Hey man, this is a great view." I said it to a guy, and he's like, "What? The tire in front of me?" He was pretty ticked off that we were in a conga line, and I was, I couldn't disagree, but at the same time, it's like, why not enjoy the view? So, enjoyed the view, went with it. Like I said, we had two different sag points. Going through, St. Kevin's, hitting PowerLine, going through this chunk. This is probably where you could hurt yourself the most. We did have some significant crashes during the race. As you can see, there's a lot of washout. You can get a lot of speed. The second section, you get even more speed, and there's some flat turns. Going down, I had trouble getting grip in holding my lines, just because with cross-country tires and that loose kind of sand, you would get a ton of speed. It's like you let off your brakes and be shot out of a cannon, and then you'd have to slow down to try to get around these turns. And at the end, I just let her go, and we were crossing over 40 in a very short period of time, 40 miles an hour. Getting to the bottom, I realized that there was going to be some significant adjustments needing to be made for race day because my brakes literally got so hot they turned blue. During race day, my buddy did fry his brakes and burned a piston out. Had that season, so he was pulling brake the entire rest of the way after that. So it's pretty significant. After you get through PowerLine, we stopped at Pipeline for sag. There's nothing really much to say between Pipeline and Twin Lakes. Just some good riding. Stopped at Twin Lakes for a bottle, and then Columbine. And I feel like this was really the start of the race, was going up Columbine. You get the big, long 8-mile climb up, and then at the top, which really ticked me off, was you get to a part they call the goat trail. So it's where this double track climb comes into single track technical climbing, and you're at 12,000 feet, and then all of a sudden everyone just stops. So I think the last mile of the Columbine climb took me over 20 minutes because I was just death marching up, because you couldn't get around it. I watched people dodge out. You got traffic coming back down at you. You have a 6-foot wall of dirt on one side. It's like, you can't pass. You just march. Nothing you can do. So I knew I was marginal getting there, and I think that probably put me back another few minutes till I got to the top. I slammed my way down. When you look at my stop times, my transition times, the times I wasn't moving between the two stops in Twin Lakes and PowerLine, I think I was down a minute, total. It was just getting in and getting new bottles. That's why I had those sustained energy, high concentration bottles. And then I slammed a couple of gels on top of that. So that's not where I lost my time. It was, the St. Kevin's and Columbine. On top of that, coming back, you also have to come up. If you're looking down at, PowerLine here, you also have to come back up it. And the section that we're not going to see is probably the steepest. The videos don't do it justice, so you're not really missing anything. But that's where I ended up walking. And I knew it wasn't worth climbing at that point either, because my heart rate was 178 just walking up it. I was trying to go as hard as I could. It's pretty rare for us amateurs to clear it. The pros do, with 38 tooth chain rings, and I'm running 32. But it was just, I thought maybe I could fight through, but I was sucking air so hard. It's like, it's not gonna matter anyways. So pushed, grind through that. And then, the rest of the way I was pretty dark. I was getting kind of sick of racing, but it wasn't until really we could start seeing Leadville anyways that I knew I wasn't going to make it. I didn't wanna ever let up because I was so close to that bubble, that 9-hour mark. You know, if I would've went sub 9, I would've got a bigger belt buckle, which would've been cool, but, um, it wasn't it wasn't pretty, and I know I left, everything out on the course. That was about as hard as I coulda rode. Um, looking back, I think there were some training things I could have done to make it a better race, but during race day, I came close to blowing a tire. I bottomed out on a descent. I heard the rim hit. Tire stayed fine. Um, I picked the best lines I could. Watching my heart rate and stuff, I held it, where I could, when I could, and I thought it was a good race overall. Looking at my time, I go, well, man, you might have been able to do better under different circumstances, but you were given a good day, and it was a good race. So, kind of summarizing the race, I would think that this is, uh, if I was going to say difficulty out of a scale of 10, technically, I would say it's a pretty low score. Your difficulty is coming from the fact that you have so much climbing and you're at altitude. If you're someone that lives at altitude, you're probably going to do a lot better with this race because you're adjusted. But if you're coming from sea level and you're coming up here, you're going to feel it. We went up to Columbine on the second day, I think it was. And when we got up to the top, I wanted to get the footage of going down, and I'll post that up. Don't worry. It'll come up eventually. But I told my buddy, I said, we got 5 minutes tops before we have to go. Even if I can't get my camera up, you just start feeling bad and weird. And, I had another week or so after that, till race day. And, going back up to Columbine, I didn't feel that. But you do fatigue quicker, and you're not able to hold the power that you want. So I would give it overall probably, I don't know, my numbers are skewed, but I'd say 6 out of 10. My buddy who raced with me raced, not the guy in front of me. He's got a pretty good mountain bike history, but the guy behind raced triathlon for a lot of years, and this is his first real mountain bike race. He's a great athlete. He's been to Kona, racing the world championships and stuff, but just doesn't have the mountain bike skills that a lot of people do. And he finished and ended up getting a small buckle too, so he got under that 12-hour mark. I think he was like an hour and a half after me or something like that. He's climbed great, just, slow descender and not super technical, and that's okay. So yeah, I think if you've got any basic bike handling skills and a good degree of fitness, this is an awesome mountain bike race. Really positive, real cool history. If you can get into it, I would suggest it. It's going to get dark at some point when you're racing, but that's racing at this distance anyways. Get back to the video. This little section was kind of fun, and you're going to see me jump a stick on the left here. I was just playing around. During training, I picked some bad lines and just kind of had some fun with it. And what I learned is that in race day, you do not jump logs you can't see behind. So that was a solid 6-foot, crevasse behind it that I didn't tell until I was like right up to it. So luckily we had some good speed and I could just bunny hop it. But man, I was like, well, dude, check yourself. So anyways, great race. Highly suggest it. We're going to bring up next, once we get to the top of this hill, maybe we'll cut it a little shorter. Let's do that. Let's just fast forward to the top of the hill, because the top of the hill is where we stop anyways, and it's just a small climb. So now let's get into the Marji Gesick. Now, if two races could be different, these are totally different. Now, if you're looking at it, 110 miles, 13,353 feet of climbing. So if you look at the map, it's not really in it. This is the top of the world. That was cool. You're looking at the map, you're like, where's all that elevation? It's just constant up and down, just up or down. You're just not going straight. You're not going flat. It is a technical mess. This race is between Ishpeming and Marquette, Michigan, in the UP. It is iron country. It is rough. It is jagged. It is awesome for riding mountain bikes if you like riding through just technical technical stuff. So here we go, Nagani and into Ishpeming. Now, I think the best way to describe this race is an adventure race with a mountain bike, with the most sadistic race director you can get. Whereas I kind of talked about, saving a town and the positivity behind Leadville, this is not that feeling. The money does go to the trails. This is an amateur race. Like, if you win it, you get $1. This is not something you're going to see cameras. You're not going to see a lot of fanfare about. It's just, I think it's 10 years old. It's just to bring people up there and enjoy the trails. So you're going to see some footage from our scouting this spring. I guess we have to start from the beginning of how to get into this race. So last year I did this and I got a transfer registration in August, and I kind of did it on a whim, and I didn't realize what I was getting into until I got into it, and it was really stupid. This year I thought I would register and actually make it my big race. The registration process goes like this. The race director, Todd, goes, "Hey, this is the day the registration is." And we were headed back from a trip, and I was in an airport, and I was like, 8 a.m., sure, great, cool. Or maybe it was 9 a.m., but regardless, I was like, okay. I was sitting there in the terminal, and I opened it up, and I was going to register, and they go, at the last minute, they go, "Oh, no, it's p.m." I was like, awesome. Okay, cool. So we went to p.m., and I got home and wandered around the house, and I was like, okay. I want to say it's 9 because it's 906, I think, is the area code. And I opened it up and I was like, all right, let's register. Well, it's still closed. Still closed at 9. I'm like, what is this? So I walked around the house and kept hitting refresh. And the reason you do this is because it sells out in a minute. Like, it literally sells out. This crashes servers. People, for some reason, want to do this like mad. And I don't understand why. I guess I do, but I don't. Anyways, so I kept hitting refresh, and like 906 or whatever pops up. And registration's open. I registered, and of course it closed within a minute or two. So anyone that was persistent enough got in, and the race directors found that hilarious. I'm sure everyone that didn't get in found it hilarious too. Of course, the back door is by, you can transfer registrations in like August 1st. People are dumping them like mad. So if you don't get in, don't worry, train for it and just pick up a registration. There's a Facebook page. So in order to get the map, let's say we're fast forwarding ahead, it's released by the race director. Last year, they released a couple of fake maps, a lot of head games and stuff. This year, we got it like 2 days out. It's usually the same every year, pretty much. There are some slight differences about where you turn off and stuff like that. For this race, talking about bike components, the tires I did update from the XC-RC, the XC tires to the M, which are mixed terrain, for a little bit more grip, because this is a lot more technical. I took out my rear lockout and I put on some silicone grips for my hands. I still went with the same race nutrition, but I got a new hydration pack because my last one, when I put my head back, it would hit. And I didn't like that. And there's a lot of real technical stuff. These videos won't do it justice. I didn't get a good video of all the technical descending and climbing and stuff like that. But this is kind of gives you an idea of what the terrain is. It's all mostly single track. This is what I'd consider more of a connector between the rockier sections, but there's some really, really technical rocky stuff. Mostly the knobs, like Pine Knob and Marquette. Zug's is a downhill enduro course. They take you up. It's got bench cut granite. It's crazy. So that's almost impossible to climb in some sections. You do a lot of walking. The joke is, wear your walking shoes because you're going to do a lot of walking. And, I did this in 14 hours and I struggled. You're going to have a headlight. So make sure you're packing headlights and your GPS with your map because you're going to need both of those. Let's see. For SAG, this is 100% self-supported. You will not find any race sanctioned anything out there. You won't find nutrition, nothing. You start, you're on your own. They do have what they call trail angels, which are people that are just out there offering aid, which is amazing, especially once you start getting into the Ishpeming Ramba section. Because that's probably, Marquette is some pretty nice trail. It's pretty well kept. Ramba is just super raw. Yeah, you see stuff like this, so you'll see me walk up this. Ramba is super raw, and you start hitting it at night, so, with headlamps and stuff. But anyways, so the trail angels are out there. Sometimes they'll have Coke, they'll have, peanut butter sandwiches and stuff like that, which is really cool. But you can't plan on any of that. You don't know who's going to be out there, how many. Some of them are out there partying and getting hammered. Some of them are just, out there with a couple of things. If you pass by anyone with aid, they call it neutral aid, so they should offer you aid. So, yeah, the race kind of strategy for this one is different. It starts with the Le Mans run, so you run like a half mile to get to your bike. I try not to go out too hard. I'm just not a good runner anymore. I don't run. I can, but it's usually short distances and it's hard on my joints, so I don't do a ton of it. I learned that last year, don't go out too hard, so I wanted to get out far enough ahead where I wasn't going to get pigeonholed and get stuck in a conga line. I didn't have too much of that this year. I got out far enough ahead where there wasn't a ton of issues. When I did get up to, you saw that picture at the top of the world, it's a big rock slab. I could find a good line down most of it. The problem was my anti-fog didn't work, so I had to do it through fog glasses, which was pretty
rock
rad.
Roll!
But anyways, I didn't have too many issues there. A couple miles past that, I did hit a root and slid out. I ripped my knee up pretty good. And then a couple miles past that, I ended up catching a handlebar on a bridge and got tangled up in that. So I had blood pretty much dried down my leg through 80 miles of the race. This is really the first race I've ever finished with blood on my leg. Now, one of the ways, or on my bike, sorry, it was totally on my leg and my bike. It's crazy. So one of the ways they keep track of where you are is traditionally they keep tokens in these checkpoints. So you show up, and it's the last 2 years it's been pumpkins. You show up to the pumpkin, it says take a token, and you take it, you put it in a pouch, bring it to the finish line. You need to bring 4 to 6 tokens, whatever is on the course. If you don't have them, you don't finish. Now this year they didn't tell anyone, but they switched it to candy. So the first pumpkin I showed up to was just fireballs. It says take one and bring it with you, bring it to the finish. And I was like, cool. I took a handful and threw them in my bag. I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll eat them later. I'm hungry. And then after we got to Jackson Park, which is kind of the first aid stop with my crew, you saw the guys that I was riding with before. They all came out, and we'll hit on that in a second. And they were my crew. So we stopped in Jackson Park. They gave me some aid. You did Marquette Mountain, which is another spot, and then Jackson Park the second time, and that was enough for aid. But we went to Jackson Park, and then the second stop after that was there was a dum-dum, and it said take one and take it to the finish. And I realized at that point, I was like, oh crap, there's no tokens. This is candy. So I took the fireball out of my jersey pocket, which didn't have a zipper on it, and I put it in a specific pocket with a zipper for my tokens. And then I zipped both of those things in there. My daughter let me keep her cool pink like striped fanny pack. It was pretty rad. So I used those, used that, and collected my dum-dums. There was a total of 3 dum-dums in that fireball. I grabbed the question mark, the question mark dum-dums for the kids. So I told them this is the hardest I'd ever worked for a piece of candy for them, and they enjoyed them. So that was pretty cool. But you bring those to the finish, and they give you the tokens. Say you finished, and you feel good about yourself because you just went 110 miles for 4 wood tokens, and that is it. The caveat is if you finish this race in under 12 hours, you can get a belt buckle. I'm going to tell you, if you're watching this video and you're thinking you're buckle material, look at yourself in the mirror and go, do I podium finish? Do I race Cat 1 and 2? Am I an exceptionally strong mountain biker. And if you answered yes to all of those, you know what? Kudos to you. You have a chance. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Just put it out of your head. Go, you know what? I can try chasing it, but likelihood is pretty slim. I was hoping to get a buckle this year, and it didn't work out. I finished 15:20, I think, last year, and this year I finished 14 hours. Did some of it in the dark. Granted, I had a total meltdown. I have never fallen into such a hole racing in my entire career. I think it had a lot to do with racing Leadville 6 weeks prior. I raced the 100 down and the underdown last year, and I learned a lot about what I need to do for training, and I adjusted my training for this. But I think Leadville took a lot out of me, and I was suboptimal. Even in that case, I think I probably would have hit 13. But going at, like, I think it was mile 60 or something, I just hit a wall, and I started hammering in as much nutrition as I could, and it was barely propping me up. I mean, I was bad. I've never wanted to quit a race so hard, but years ago, I raced a triathlon. It was just an Olympic. It was one of my first races, and I ended up walking at the end, and I was super bummed about it. And yeah, this is pretty par and technical, how technical it is. Um, but I told myself I'd never quit again, and I haven't, and I didn't. I just kept pushing through, and I knew that I wasn't gonna get my buckle, but there's something about walking away from a race and giving up. You know, you can crash out, you can have a mechanical, but to go, "You know what? I'm just done, and I'm giving up," is just, I don't know, it's something I don't wanna deal with mentally. I feel like that's just I can't do it. So, I persevered through, a lot of coke, just a crap ton of coke got me through the last 20 miles. You know, I had my headlight on, I had my bike light on, I'm slamming through some of this chunky terrain, like, at that point, I don't know how they found it, but they found mud and wet roots. Like, it didn't rain. It's not like it rained that day, but they seemed to find just the worst stuff to drag you through. So, this is on the course. This is kind of a cool section. This is more in the Marquette area. It's a kind of a connector, I would say again. But if you look, those are all railroad ties. So I watched a dude ride this race day on a hardtail. I was like, that is not the right bike for this. And just hammering him. I'm like, man, you're gonna have a long 80 miles left. Um, but anyways, so that's kind of the Margie. If you're thinking about it, if I was to put a go for the 0 to 10 scale, the Margie's just like a 10 out of 10. It's unnecessarily hard for a mountain bike race. The altitude is not a factor. You're not really that high up. You're not in thin air. It's just everything about it, from registration to the race itself is a mine, and they're screwing with you. The course itself is unnecessarily hard. Why are you going up enduro like runs? You should be going down them. That'd be cool. I still want to go down Zugs. Everyone tells me going down it's amazing. I've never been down it. I'm just going up it. Um, if you're like, you know what, this sounds amazing. This sounds super hard. Go for it. Give her, but just realize it's hard and it's a mind mess. It's just that's what it is. The two guys I rode Leadville with, think I'm an idiot. They were happy to go and get hammered afterwards. Why wouldn't you go and tour breweries and occasionally show up to give your buddy water and encouragement? They were great. I mean, I can't tell you. Last year when I did this, I said I need a crew within 6 weeks, and they said, "Where are we going? When? What weekend? You got a place?" I'm like, "Okay." So they showed up. Showed up again this year with the wives, and they all had a blast. We all celebrated afterwards, and it was an amazing time. But again, uh, if you're gonna do it, I suggest having a couple of years of good mountain biking experience and technical skills. Uh, I'm not the greatest mountain biker in the world by any means. I'm no slouch either. Um, I grew up riding BMX in dirt pits, and then found mountain biking later. So for whatever that's worth, but um, I think it's just a hard course. So we're gonna take you through some of the footage from Breckenridge. Just a quick little ride here. I absolutely love Colorado. This is the first time I've been out there in a lot of years, and the first time I've ever been mountain biking out there, and I had a blast. I need to go back. My spouse, I think, really wants to go back too. I think there's some things she'd really like to do, and I'd like to do it when I'm not racing. But let's use this for some closing thoughts on the year, training and kind of a little bit between the two races. So this year was absolutely amazing. I spent a ton of time on the bike, spent a ton of time with friends. This was truly just amazing bike year, and I loved every second that I loved. There was a lot of stuff I didn't like with training, but that's training. Eventually, you just get sick of it. And after a few weeks, I'm back. I went riding with a buddy today. Just fun sessioning stuff, and I'm back at it. Took a little bit to rebound after the Marji. Like I said, it got pretty dark out there. I finished, but it left me in a little bit of a slump for a while. I know the post-race slump is real, but after two big epic races like that, it was pretty tough. So I'm finally pulling myself out of that and getting back to things and feeling myself again. The Marji was my primary race I was training for. So I spent a lot of time doing intervals, technical work, spent a lot more time in the gym. And I did put on, I maintained a little bit heavier weight. So I was pretty much 180 on the dot, give or take a few pounds all summer. My strength was high. I wouldn't, last year I had trouble maintaining position and stuff at the Marji, and I was strong as far as that goes the entire time. It was mostly nutrition stuff that I needed to work on. I also think that I left everything at Leadville and my body just didn't recover the way I wanted to. I think metabolically I was still in a slump, and I was having trouble processing food. I think there was a lot of just metabolic waste and stuff left over there. I think these races take a bit more to recover from really. I did the 100 down at the Underdown last year, which was another single track technical race in central Wisconsin. And that was like 98% single track, and it just beat the tar out of me. And going into the Marji, I could still feel it. Leadville, I didn't feel that type of fatigue as much, but I did feel, the metabolic fatigue, I think, just coming out of it. I tried to do some more recovery stuff, but you can't race that hard and then rebound and then build again. It's more like you try to recover and maintain. Anyways, that was my thought on it. But if I was to train all out for Leadville, it would have been very different. I think I would have definitely spent time in the gym, but I would have less prioritized it because you're doing less technical riding, so more stability. You're not constantly trying to bunny hop over roots or rocks or, push out, over 1,000 watts to get a little punchy section so that you don't have to unclip and walk again. There's a ton of that at the Marji. It is just brutal. There's a lot of connector trail, but it's like, that connector trail of like, connector roads that look similar to this, you're going like, 2 out of 10 technicality into like 10 out of 10. It is nuts. So I would have knocked that back. I would have spent probably more time on the trainer, more time on the road bike, to be honest. I would have spent more time in the hills. We've got a section of 3 mile climb. I would have went out and did that. I did a little bit of that. Before Leadville, we did a 100-mile ride on some rail trails on the mountain bikes. And I realized at that time that my, steady state fitness wasn't there. I could just feel it, I can put out a ton of power and I could recover from it, but just steady state zone 2 stuff, it was getting fatiguing. It's like, this is weird. So that was good to do. It was probably a month or 2 out from the race. So I started getting a little bit more steady state in, but at the same time, I didn't want to, compromise the Marji stuff. So like I said, there's just 2 totally different races. You've got your positivity, your, lower technical race, a lot of steady state climbing, in the hills, the actual mountains, versus this kind of death march, twisted race director led thing through the punchiest, crappiest trails that, the UP has to offer. And I shouldn't say they're crappy. There are some actually magnificent trails. Uh, I'd love to go back and just ride. I think they're just great, but it's hard stuff. It really is. So, but there you go, man. That was my year. I hope you all had a good one, and thanks for following.